Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely mind-blowing: how ancient weapons literally laid the foundation for human civilization. Throughout history, weapons have been so much more than just simple tools of war. They've totally shaped civilizations, shifted the entire balance of power, built and broken empires, and completely revolutionized how early humans fought just to survive. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how every major leap in weapons tech completely changed the course of human history. Okay, here's the game plan for our journey today. We'll be moving through four main phases. Section 1, from survival to supremacy. Section 2, forging the first empires. Section 3, tactics, siege, and sea. And finally, Section 4, shaping civilization and legacy. Let's jump right in. So, a quick question before we start. Were ancient weapons just tools of destruction? Well, it's super tempting to look at them that way, right? But to really get this, we need a complete shift in perspective. These weren't just about destroying things. They were massive symbols of human innovation, complex strategy, and crazy adaptation. They helped create empires, spread languages, and even sparked everyday inventions. Keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this. All right, Section 1, from survival to supremacy. Let's take a look at the macro progression of materials here, because it perfectly illustrates how each leap forward totally redefined how we survived. We start way back in the prehistoric era. We're talking basic stone, wood, and bone. Then, humanity discovers metal, pushing us right into the Bronze Age with copper and bronze tools. That evolves into the ancient era, completely driven by iron, and eventually leads all the way up to the explosive, world-changing shifts of the medieval period with gunpowder. Each step on this timeline, it wasn't just a military upgrade, it was a literal societal revolution. Think about those early simple spears, bone tools, and sharpened rocks. They weren't just for hunting dinner, they were the ultimate equalizers. By coming up with these tools, early humans gave themselves the ability to overcome some really severe physical disadvantages compared to the much larger, faster predators out there. It was absolutely crucial. It allowed them to fiercely compete for resources and defend their communities, which basically let humans expand across the entire planet. Moving right along to Section 2, forging the first empires. Now, when people figured out how to work with copper, bronze, and iron, everything changed. Simple survival evolved into massive organized civilizations. And as you can see here, specific military innovations are directly tied to the rise of history's greatest empires. For instance, the Assyrian Empire used iron tools and highly organized siege machines to absolutely dominate the ancient Middle East. Then you've got the Romans, right? They used advanced armor and their signature sword to control enormous territories. And later on, the Mongols built this incredible military strength around terrifyingly fast mounted archers, using horses to completely surprise their enemies and sweep across massive areas of land. Let's talk about the sword for a second, because it was a total game changer. It allowed soldiers to fight up close with devastating speed and precision. It really became the ultimate symbol of military power. What's fascinating is how different civilizations came up with unique designs to fit their specific fighting styles. You've got the Roman gladius, which was this brutal, short stabbing blade, and the Greek xiphos, a double-edged leaf-shaped sword. These weren't just hunks of metal. They were vital instruments that literally carved out history's greatest empires. Now, let's compare how they actually fought. Early on, warfare was all about the individual. It relied heavily on the brute strength of a solo warrior seeking personal glory. But the ancient Greeks, they totally flipped the script. They fundamentally changed warfare by shifting the focus away from the individual and focusing entirely on collective, synchronized movement. And that brings us to the famous phalanx formation. This disciplined strategy is exactly how smaller Greek city-states completely crushed much larger armies. Basically, soldiers, known as hoplites, fought together in these incredibly tight, organized lines. They carried long spears and massive overlapping shields and moved as one single impenetrable wall. It's brilliant, really, because it proved that ironclad discipline and formation could be just as powerful as the weapons themselves. You can't talk about the phalanx without talking about the Spartans. Their legendary spear and shield combo wasn't just battlefield gear. It represented an entire culture of loyalty and brutal organization that was drilled into them from childhood. Spartan warriors were the ultimate embodiment of that phalanx ideal. Yes, their weapons showed off their combat skills, but more importantly, they symbolized a society utterly dedicated to sacrifice and military perfection. Even though there weren't actually that many of them, their insane level of organization made them absolute legends. Which brings us to Section 3, Tactics, Siege, and Sea. So as these empires grew, armies ran into a massive new headache: defensive city walls. People wanted to feel safe, so they built giant walls, right? But attackers weren't just going to give up. They had to engineer powerful new siege technology to break through. The rules of war had to evolve. A walled city was supposed to guarantee total safety, but human innovation, well, it pushed right back. Enter some truly incredible, almost terrifying machines. We're talking massive siege towers, heavy battering rams, and catapults. These inventions permanently changed warfare, because suddenly there was no such thing as a completely safe city wall. I mean, think about the engineering behind this. These were massive mechanical feats that allowed armies to systematically tear down fortifications that took decades to build. Just wild. Meanwhile, out on the open battlefield, ranged weapons were completely changing the game. The invention of the bow and arrow meant that highly skilled archers, like those from Egypt or Persia, could strike with lethal precision long before anyone even swung a sword. It completely rewrote how generals planned their battles, literally deciding the outcomes of wars from hundreds of feet away.
And hey, this arms race definitely wasn't just limited to dry land. Out on the seas, Greek and Roman naval tactics allowed these empires to project their power across vast oceans. Honestly, whoever controlled the seas usually controlled the known world. By creating heavily reinforced ships and using really aggressive naval ramming tactics, these empires could just shatter enemy fleets. It let them lock down vital trade routes and flex their power across massive regions of water.
But then, everything gets turned upside down again. The arrival of explosive gunpowder introduces a completely new era. While it did develop kind of gradually in the later ancient and medieval periods, gunpowder fundamentally shattered the effectiveness of traditional sword combat. Those massive stone castles and heavy metal suits of armor we were just talking about, yeah, gunpowder basically made them totally obsolete overnight.
All right, let's wrap things up with Section 4, Shaping Civilization and Legacy.
Let's pull the lens back for a second and look at the constructive flip side of all this. It's crazy to think about, but these destructive tools actually built human society as we know it today. The exact same skills used to create weapons heavily contributed to civilian engineering, transportation, and math. Think about it. To build a better catapult, you need advanced mathematics. To forge a lighter, stronger sword, you need huge breakthroughs in metallurgy. These military needs pushed the boundaries of human knowledge and naturally spilled over into everyday tools, building construction, and incredible craftsmanship.
We also can't ignore the psychological side of things. Advanced tech gave armies this immense swagger and confidence, while striking paralyzing fear into their enemies before a battle even started. Sometimes, a super advanced weapon didn't even need to be used to change the outcome of an event. The sheer reputation of certain weapons, and the warriors carrying them, spun into legends that have literally survived for thousands of years.
Fast forward to today, and archaeologists can study just a single ancient spearhead or a rusty piece of armor to uncover the trade routes and social structures of people who lived millennia ago. These artifacts, they aren't just old rust and wood, they're literal time capsules. They tell us who traded with who, how their societies were layered, and how humans continuously adapted to face some seriously incredible challenges.
I think this quote sums it up perfectly. The history of ancient weapons is ultimately the history of humanity itself. Every single bow, shield, and sword tells a profound, deeply human story of intelligence and ambition. They show exactly how our ancestors used their creativity to protect their homes and mold the entire world around them. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. How do the principles of ancient warriors continue to shape the modern world we know today? When you look closely, the legacy of that hoplite's strict discipline, the Roman engineers' paved roads, and the archer's strategic distance, they are all still incredibly visible in how we navigate and defend our world right now. Thanks so much for exploring this wild history with me in this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.